Welcome to a special presentation of Sellout Crowd, Conversations with Coach. I'm Bob Stoops. I'm taking time to talk with my friends and colleagues in the sports world to get caught up and share some stories. But first, I want to say thanks to these sponsors: Rose Hill Builders, Laser Light Skin Clinic, and Louie's Bar and Grill. Today I'm joined by Lane Johnson. All right, Lane Johnson joining me here. This is the best. Super Bowl champion, two-time first-team All-Pro, four-time Pro Bowler, 135 games started. And here's the best one, going through all your stuff, Lane. One touchdown reception. Yeah. When was that?
Not last year, but the year before. So, we had that play in for a few weeks, and it was one of those things like, we'll see if he calls it. And they called it. We were up. We were up just the right amount. So, yeah, I'll remember that for a long time.
Well, no one has to convince me. I know you can catch. Yeah. I know you can throw. Let me give the listeners a little bit of this too. 2008 Kilgore Junior College. You're the starting quarterback. 584 yards passing, 7 TDs, 3 interceptions, 52% completion percentage. And our first year, when you were redshirted, you were running some of the scout team quarterback stuff for us, weren't you?
Yeah, I did a little bit of everything. I did that. I remember playing receiver a little bit. I remember when we were, I guess Kansas had a good team. I was going against Dominique Franks. So, yeah, I got to see the field from a lot of different views.
But originally, let's start back at Groveton, Texas, Lane. Back at Groveton High School, playing quarterback, right? And then talk about, your recruitment to Kilgore, and then your trip to Oklahoma. And I think it was Bobby Jack Wright that recruited you.
Yeah. So, I went to Groveton. It was a 1A school, so I had 30 kids in my class. So, really, players from down the road like Lufkin, the powerhouses, are going to get a lot more attention than us. So I ended up going to Kilgore. I had an offer from Rice, but I ended up choosing to go to Kilgore, and so went there.
What size were you? What was your height and weight back then?
Yeah, so my junior year, I was probably 6'5", probably 190. Then my senior year, I was probably 6'6", 215, 220. So really, I had the frame. It was just, really skinny. But, whenever I started to make the transition to tight end was my second year at Kilgore. One of our tight ends ended up transferring. So we needed some bodies. So I ended up doing that. And then, so how the OU connection came about was my high school coach, Keith Thomas, played for Switzer. I think back in, I think it was 84, 85. And so he knew Merv. He knew a bunch of guys up there. He was still good friends with Tinker Owens. And so during that summer, I was going to TCU. I felt like TCU was going to offer me. They looked at me in high school. And then when it came down to it, the timing was right. Somebody had a scholarship offer, and I ended up getting to OU. So it was a very unlikely story. I know y'all came out on a limb for me, just kind of, saw the eye test, saw me throw a little bit. It's like, I will give him a chance. And, really a lot of good things happened there. I credit you, Mangino, and Coach Smitty, for my success. Y'all kind of had the eyes for it. So,
well, what's neat, Lane, is you had such a journey, from Groveton to Kilgore, and what position, quarterback, and then tight end. And then at OU, we moved you to defensive end, right? Because you could run like the wind. I mean,
yeah, I was fast.
Oh, man, what an athlete. So, but you had the patience. In today's world, and, I'm going to say the same thing. Blake Bell, who's coming on after you, he comes in as a quarterback. Most quarterbacks don't want to hear anything else. We end up moving him to tight end, and now he's in his 9th year as a tight end in the NFL. But you guys stuck with it. And then you not only defensive end then for a year. We get a couple of tackles hurt. Was it, I think, early in the summer, or was it spring?
I think it was the spring. I think Jarvis might have got hurt during the season, but he was out all spring, and that's why.
That's what it was. It was the spring. And I remember asking Smitty, and you'll love this, I asked Smitty, I said, what would it take? I said, Lane, what were you weighing? Probably you were trying to hold your weight down to play defensive end.
Yeah, I was probably
Yeah,
I was around 275.
yeah, but to keep the speed. And I said to Smitty, I said, what would it take for Lane Johnson to be about 300 pounds and play at 300 pounds and play tackle? He said about 2 weeks and about 3 cheeseburgers.
Man, that's really no joke, man. I remember before the practice, before I ended up switching, Coach Height was walking through the building, and he kind of asked what was I weighing. I was like 275, or he made me go get in the scale and weigh in. And then as soon as I weighed in like 280 or 275, he was going, wow, this ain't going to take long. So I saw the wheel spinning. But I knew Mangino came during that spring, and so I got the inclination, and he may have had the idea to move Jamal Brown from D tackle to offense tackle. And so y'all kind of got y'all's head together, and then next thing you know, I've been kick sliding ever since.
Yeah, it's worked out pretty good. So you're with us 2009 to 2012.
Yep.
You're a first round pick, the 4th overall pick in 2013, and you've been with the Eagles ever since. 10th year, I guess, right now.
11th. Yeah,
11th year. How about that?
Yeah.
Talk about just the journey, the Super Bowls, what it's like here. We got another Sooner with you, Jalen Hurts, working with him. Talk a little bit about your journey there through the NFL and how exciting it's been for you.
Yeah, I mean, just whenever I first switched, I remember it was before spring practice. You came to me and said, "Hey, I think you'll be a first round pick. That's going for somebody that hadn't really played." And I was like, that's pretty cool to hear. But that kind of gave me the confidence. Had those 2 good years in college, but when I got to the NFL, just the speed of the game was a little bit faster, and you look at the pass rush as a total different animal. So really, after about a year or two of learning, I feel like my game developed. But as far as like freak athletes, Trent was there with us, and so I got to see him firsthand. And then when I got to the Eagles, Jason Peters was there, and so I remember he got done with a practice one time, and he was in his cold tub shorts, and he weighed 361, and I was like, if I would have heard of a guy weighing this much in college, I would have said he's a slob and can't move. And then I saw him move, and I'm going, there's definitely levels to it. But yeah, I just feel like, even now I filled out my frame around 330. So, it's probably 310 when I got drafted, but I always had the feet. But once I kind of got the understanding of how to be a pro and get a routine. And then, we've had a lot of success here. We have great coaches, but I feel like, Howie and those guys and Lurie, they've done a good job of really stacking the roster, or they know what's important to a football team. It's not sexy to zone in on the O-line, D-line, but you know how it really starts up front and always has. So, what I like about the O-line position is just, you're in there with the guys. It's all about communication. And I feel like, that brotherhood runs deep, and, there's only a few guys that have been, in the big games with you. There's only a few guys that have been in the big games with me. And so playing with those guys, and when you're not around in the offseason, that's what you really miss, is the guys that were in the fire with you.
I don't think people really, and I'm with you. There's nothing like the brotherhood, the teammates, right? The guys that are fighting right next to you every single day. I love it. You've been able to experience it for so long. I think what people sometimes overlook is the work the rest of the year, not just during the season. Talk about your routine of, you don't just show up and all of a sudden, go through a 17 game schedule.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to assess your body and in your play. When you go back, should I be lower in the run game? Am I losing flexibility? So, I think as an older player, strength is, I feel like you get a lot stronger in your upper 20s and 30s. But the key thing for me is staying limber and nimble. So for me, the weightlifting stuff, I've always enjoyed that from high school. I enjoyed it with Smitty and how serious he took it, because, like you said, they're with those guys 65 to 70% of the time, and then during the season they're with y'all. But there's a lot of time where it's one-on-one focus with these guys and bettering yourself. So I saw how the impact of that. Then when I saw players that had long careers in the NFL, there was one common theme: they were very strong, so their body was able to hold up to the impact. And then just range of motion. But like I said, these guys had routines, and that's something I had to learn. And when you see these professionals and how serious they take it, and you realize, yeah, there's a lot of work put in, and it goes from a year to year basis. You have to evaluate yourself and go from there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I always admire how hard you guys work in the out of season because somebody wants your job every year. There's young guys coming out of college that are trying to displace every one of you guys. So it's a competitive business, and you got to really work hard to stay on top of your game. How's our guy Jalen Hurts
you
treating
do.
you? You know, all the Sooner Nation always wants to catch up with him as well.
Man, he's so awesome. Just what you were talking about, how hard he works. He does a lot of stuff, under wraps. I mean, he's kind of a private person, but what I think I enjoy most about Jalen is just his demeanor.
Yeah.
In the biggest situations, he's the same. When things are terrible, he's the same. And so, from a standpoint of maintaining calm and keeping the offense kind of composed, he does a great job with that. But I just feel like his ability to, there's obvious questions of his throwing ability when he came in, but he's answered those game by game, and then the things he can do on the run outside of the pocket, the plays he can make, it really makes your offense more dynamic. You can do a whole lot more, and for me, it changes kind of the rush approach to the defense. Sometimes these guys don't want to break contain and have him scramble and make a play. So, a lot of good things come from that.
I love being around him. I sat in a bunch of quarterback meetings, even though I was retired. I would sit in meetings so I could kind of know what to anticipate for the games and whatnot, and how serious he took everything, how hard he worked. I think it's obvious to everybody how hard he's worked on his throwing motion and his accuracy. I mean, he's fantastic to go with all of that athleticism. So really, really been exciting and fun to watch.
Yeah, and he's made all the jumps. I mean, when we look at year to year progression, I mean, it's really he's been remarkable.
Let me ask you something. I know 2022, the Christmas album with Jason Kelsey. Are you on the 2023 Christmas album this year? Can we look forward to hearing you?
Yeah, so that whole thing started. We all knew Jordan was a good singer. At least if you've been in the building, he's a great singer. But Kels does like a lot of charity work. So we raised a little bit over $1 million last year, and so gave that to the Crisis Center of Philadelphia for the kids. So really done a lot of good. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Stepping outside of your comfort zone, and you're working with real musicians. So it was really a fish out of water experience.
I got to admit, I found out about it today. I've got to go back and get it. I want to critique your voice.
Yeah, there's a lot to critique, but no, it was really fun, and like you said, it's really a whole lot of people involved. And, we had musicians come in and lay different parts of the track down, so a lot of work comes from that too.
There's nothing like giving back to the community. I know those people appreciate that. And if you're giving over $1 million, that's a huge impact. So, how's Chelsea feeling about your wife, a former OU high jumper? How's she critique your voice?
Probably says it needs a lot of work. So yeah, there's definitely levels to it. When we had Mulata come in, like for his rookie talent show, he came in. I think he's saying Chris Stapleton like Tennessee whiskey, and I was like, well, if football doesn't work out, he can definitely get a contract doing this too.
Yeah, you and Chelsea have children?
Yep, 3 kids. So Jace, my oldest, who's 10, Journey, who's 7, and then my youngest, Channing, who's 4. So
awesome.
And they all stay in Oklahoma during the year to go to school.
Oh, I was wondering, they just come out to see you then?
Yeah, during the year.
Well, that's awesome. I lost my train of thought. I don't know. What else should we? Anything else, Lane? This is all recorded, so they'll edit this.
Just some funny stories. I mean, there's a lot of Smitty stories.
Yeah, let's do a little Smitty. Yeah. All right, Lane. I know you talked to I talked to Smitty about what would it take Lane to be an offensive tackle, and I said he said a couple weeks and 3 cheeseburgers. But talk about that journey with Smitty and getting up to the weight that, the 300
Yeah,
pounds or whatever you played at. And you always had the feet, the athleticism. Listen,
yeah,
people out there listening, Lane could run. He'd run past defensive ends. He could run with the DBs. And I don't care what weight you were at, you were still out there ahead of everybody. And I know you still can run. But
yeah.
talk about just that work with Smitty.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, he spends, a lot of time with the guys, about 70%, you're with him. And so, as far as setting a tone for a football team, I mean, it felt like you were part of the military when you stepped in that bubble or you stepped on the track. It was very routine. Um, and then he would pop out a different door. Sometimes you didn't know if you were going in the weight room or on the track, and you didn't know if you're going on the football field. So I think he kind of kept it that way. Is the way he described it was, football games end up going crazy sometimes, so you have to be able to adapt. But I just thought his, what he's produced over the years, as far as guys, height, weight, speed, and how they develop. There's really no mystery. Even when he was down there with you in Florida,
That's right.
he's well known just for not only the program he designs, but just how intense and how accountable he makes each player. And so, when you have that instilled in guys, I feel like it maybe make it easier for a coach to, at least you'll have their attention. At least he's accustomed to giving full speed all the time. So I feel like he was just such a great piece to what we did. And like you said, when a lot of guys get together, they're talking about Smitty stories. I remember getting guys that were on recruiting trips. He would, if they were in jeans, he would make them see box jumps. Try to get an eye test before signing guys to be like, this guy can't bend, this guy can't run. So that was always pretty funny. But he was an intense, but I mean, he always had a purpose, and he would give you compliments when you needed them, and he would critique you when you needed it too. But yeah, I mean, when you talk to all the former players, Smitty is a big topic of conversation. Just even guys that didn't make it to the league, it's like, hey, I made it through summers with this guy. Life isn't going to be too hard.
Yeah, discipline and accountability. There's no doubt about how you were dressed, putting your hand on the line. Everything about it was but it pays off, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And just what I said, yeah, I mean, when you endure some of that stuff and then you get to go on the football field and, you get to appreciate it. I remember Coach Gundy and Coach Wilson saying, we try to make practices worse than games. So when you get to games, they seem easy. And that's really how it felt. There's a lot of merit to that. But, I just think, the players that whenever I got there were so huge in like my development. I got to see Jermaine. I was talking to Coach Gundy about this last week. I don't know if I've ever seen a player, a tight end, Brody Eldridge, go from being a tight end to a game and then going and putting on number 50 and then playing center for the rest of the game. I've never seen that before since then, and to have a guy that can do that and, having Sam there and Gerald and Trent and just having all these phenomenal guys and just the coaches like, Coach Ship was an intense man, Coach V.
Right.
We had a lot of war horses there. We had a lot of intense individuals. So, but you need
some of our scrimmages and team sessions were harder than games, weren't they?
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember. You look at a spring practice, you may have 130 plays. Hey, that's two football games in the NFL. So, when you look back, you can really appreciate kind of that programming that OU brought to you. You're programmed to, once after you've done it for a few years, you didn't really have to think about it much. It was, your body was ready.
Absolutely. Any other funny stories, Lane?
Ooh, let me think. Always enjoyed the transfer to East Popcorn State. If you're going to do some dumb stuff, they'd always come in and talk about the rules or making money on the side when you couldn't. And your message was, well, you heard him. He said, you want to mess around, you can go transfer to East Popcorn State.
Let's talk about that real quick. Just, Lane, it's a different world now with NIL and guys can make money in a different talk about some of our compliance meetings and the do's and don'ts, which basically back in your years, you couldn't do anything,
Yeah.
whatsoever. And you know me, I was pretty much a stickler about the rules. We went by the rules, didn't we?
Yeah, our compliance was like a bunch of eagles and hawks up there. They were ready for guys to mess around, but with the thing with Rhett, I felt like really the hammer came down, and so just to make sure a situation like that didn't happen again. But yeah, a lot of our team meetings, he'd come in and talk about all the different rules and things you can't do, and then you would come up there, but well, you heard him. He said you want to mess around, you can go transfer to East Popcorn State and go play there. So. That was
You
always
said that
funny.
with a little bit of my accent there. You
Yeah.
did too.
Go
East
transfer.
Popcorn State.
Yeah.
Well,
Always enjoyed that. But one thing I enjoyed about our pregame stuff was whenever we'd ride to the stadium, we'd all go sit in our seats. Coaches would go in there and ask you questions on the spot, and it's like I don't know where you got that from, but I thought that was really cool. I really enjoyed the night before, going to the movies. I really enjoyed those two aspects. Where did you end up kind of learning that from, or where'd you get
you
that
know
from?
what? I took that from Lane. That was from Hayden Fry. That's what we did when he got to Iowa. And I did that my 4 years playing for Hayden Fry. We would, as you just said, for the people out there, we'd all come straight in from the hotel 2 hours before the game, and we would go right to our seats in the team room. And each coach would take, like, offense would go first and then defense. And each coach would have 2-3 questions for a guy about what to expect when we call this, or when you see this formation, what do you expect? And so what it gets everyone doing is, even though it might be offense or it's defense, different positions, it gets everybody thinking about their assignments and what has to happen, the mental part of the game. And I got to admit, some guys weren't as adept as others that weren't quite on whatever. Some guys you had to tell what you're going to ask them.
Yeah.
I used to have to tip some guys off.
Yeah.
But I've done that everywhere I've been, even as an assistant coach, and it gets everybody's mind on the game and the mental part of the game, not just being excited to play, but what are my assignments? What am I looking for? What am I expecting? And really, to me, it really got everybody geared in before you even went in to get dressed. And that's what you're saying.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I just, I haven't really seen that since, kind of the pro game. You show up to the stadium, it's a little bit different, the setup. So, but I always thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I always thought we were ready to play.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. Well, Lane, you've had an amazing career. The whole OU world and everybody, or the Eagles, everybody's proud of you and what you represent, the man you are, what you do for the community, and we're all just proud of your hashtag OU DNA back here as well. So we wish you continued success, buddy.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I plan on seeing you a little bit this offseason, so we'll go hang out, grab some lunch, and shoot the bull.
You bet, buddy. Always look forward to seeing you.